So this tank here is my 55-gallon long, and this is probably pretty common for most of you, but it's actually unique for me in that it is my planted tank. Now, plants are not something that's new to me or anything like that, but it does change how I treat this tank, the water parameters in this tank, and what I have to observe and do. I don't generally clean the back of my tanks. I let algae eaters and so on deal with that. But in this tank, it's starting to look kind of bad back there, really. So I want to get in there and scrape some of that up and clean it up. And we have a little plant trimming we need to do. See some of these leaves down here? They're getting kind of bad looking and need trimmed up and taken care of. Here's a different view from the end of it. And give you an idea, see the stuff growing on the back of the glass. That is not stuff that I have anything in here that's going to eat or clean that up. Some of that is a little Blackbeard, the dreaded Blackbeard. It traveled in here on a different plant because I had it on a lot of plants. See, most of these plants are actually kind of young because I had a Blackbeard problem, but I couldn't bring myself to just sort of ditch the plants and start over or something. I thought, what do you learn when you do that? You gotta try to treat it. You gotta try to work your way through it, right? And I got pretty good at it. I did the peroxide trick, which, in case if any of you don't know that, you can make a peroxide solution fairly weak, and you can treat it right in the tank, or do what I chose to do, which was remove the plants and dip them, give them a little while, then give them a rinse and replace them in the tank. But the problem with disturbing all your plants and doing that is that, yes, it's going to kill off some of it, but you're also damaging root structures and all that sort of thing. You're bending and breaking the stems of plants. So a lot of my plants have had to kind of die off, go through a cycle, and come back. Alright, so I'll get set up, and we'll remove some of this dead plant material in here, trim it up, clean up the glass, and I'll take you along for that journey. Okay, so here are the tools that I intend to use to take care of this tank. This is a stool so I can get up where I need to be, and a siphon. I will couple this with a water change and a siphoning. And you have a razor blade. I like the scissors that are bent at the tip, and a scraper, as well as a pair of tweezers with a bent tip on them in case if I need them to replant something, and a cheap bowl. Now, what I've done is I go to a local discount store, bought myself a strainer and a bowl. Both of them fit nicely in the top of a bucket. So, along with all three items, it makes it nice to be able to do anything you really want to do. And these items I don't wash with soap or anything like that. Just rinse them well, they air dry, and that will, nothing is going to survive air drying over a period of time. You're not going to get ick, for example. It's going to live because it won't live its cycle in a dry environment. So I've got my stool set up and all my tools gathered up, and first thing we got to do is remove some of the stuff from the top of this tank, make a little bit more room. So I've got a couple of lights up here. There's a full length light that sits on top of it. It's an LED light, and then I have a kind of a home dun light that sits on the back of it. Now we don't want to take away all of the light, because then we won't see what we're doing. Alright, these are homemade glass tops that I have on this tank. So I'll make myself a little bit of room to work with. And I'll get my siphon tube. Now my siphon tube in this fish room is geared up to go directly outdoors. And it goes outside and where we collect the water for our garden in the summertime, and in the wintertime it goes into a drainage ditch. I just kind of alternate where it's going to be. If it goes into a barrel in the summer, it goes directly into the garden and we can feed out of the barrel or so on. So first things first, I'm going to get my siphon going. Now there's a topic of conversation for you too. How do you get a siphon going? The simple way, drop it in, get it started. As the water starts to go out, flip it back over, and you are siphoning. So in this planted tank, I have to kind of move around most of the plants instead of removing objects like you would in an aquarium with a bunch of decorations. Now I've got some dead leaves and stuff that I want to remove down here, so I'm going to take my bent scissors, cut some of those off, and we'll pull them out. Once a leaf dies back and all the nutrients are gone from it, then, and I got my bowl right here by the way, then it's just sucking nutrients out of what should be feeding other things, or really it's just rotting and adding ammonia, because any organics in your tank are going to just add ammonia and problems to your tank. There goes the light. Might be better for you guys to see without it anyway. So let's go without it. So we've got our blade here, razor blade. It's got a little plastic scraper piece to it. I'm going to use that to remove a lot of the algae from the back of the tank, because it's not a desirable algae. It's nothing that anybody's going to eat. It's dreaded Blackbeard algae. And by getting it loose and scraped off of there, hopefully we'll be able to siphon some of it out of here. Now I gotta watch out for baby plecos. Most of them are hiding. And most healthy fish will avoid a siphon tube anyway. I'll be honest with you, I do not siphon this tank as often, and I don't do water changes as often as I do my other tanks. And the reason for that is because it's so high up here. It's a bit of a pain that way, and it was originally planned to not have as much attention. That's why I planted it, so that the plants would be using up a lot of the nitrates that get built up in the tank. I still measure it regularly to make sure, and that's how I've created a schedule of how often to do it. Now there's a lot of little fish in here, which means a lot of waste. And nothing removes the waste but you. Okay, so I've done a lot of trimming at this point, and I'm just finishing up the vacuuming. And it should be noted that what I will do here is I will clean the intake sponge, and I'm a big believer in intake sponges on everything, but I'm not going to be cleaning the filter. And what I will do is I will finish doing my water change. I'll do a test of the parameters in the tank. I did a test beforehand, and I'll give it about 24 to 48 hours. Test everything again and see if we've changed anything. I was getting a little bit of a buildup of nitrates, but nothing dangerous whatsoever. No ammonia, no nitrites. So nothing like that. But we'll see if that's dropped any. And that will tell me if I can do a little bit of fertilizer for these plants to help them fight the undesirable algae that I'm experiencing here. See the dirt there? And without a doubt, that is exactly the reason that that I'm seeing the nitrate level. It's because of these decaying organics that are in here. All right, we'll be back and see how it turned out. Here's a method that I use for making sure that I get things that I want. So I'll do it in the front so you can see. I would take my razor blade, I would scrape towards just the siphon hose and be able to get a lot of loose pieces to go right out through the hose. I control the suction with my finger, and I'll go around and do strategic areas like that. Okay, so here we have this tank all put back together after we did our plant trimming and vacuuming and cleaning. And you can see all the little micro bubbles on all the plants, and that brings something up. People talk about plant purling. This is not plant purling. Don't mistake it for such. It's not plant purling. This is simply oxygenated water that sticks to your glass and sticks to your plants and all of that sort of thing, and it'll eventually find its way to the surface, and that'll be the end of it. The fish will knock it off the plants and everything. And it's actually good for, it does the same idea. It's still going to break the surface tension of the water and help oxygenate the water. I believe that less is more when doing this kind of trimming and stuff on a tank. I would rather do a little bit each time I vacuum the tank and work on it, and I will gradually get ahead of the Blackbeard algae that we were referring to earlier. But I don't like to do the radical approach that I see some people do. They take everything apart and they basically destroy it, and I don't think that's necessary. Get a good balance, feed the plants well, they will eventually beat the algae, and help them out a little bit along the way. So I took and got rid of some of the worst leaves that had the worst of it on it, cleaned the back of it, vacuumed most of it out in the process of the water change. And the fish are loving the water change. Everything looks good. We cleaned the intake sponge, just rinsed it out in some tank water. And off we go. One last thing. See the baby pleco? Not entirely sure how many are in here. There's mom on the wood. Little baby right there.